The last thing that we are going to learn in this chapter is the box model. I'm going to teach you positioning in the next chapter, and learning the box model is a great first step to learn that. Let's go to our About Me page and add a quick paragraph. I'm going to use this paragraph to demonstrate border, padding, and margin. The box model refers to a set of 3 styling attributes that can affect the space taken up by a single element. These attributes are border, padding, and margin. We will get into more details later in this video, but for now, we need to learn about the difference between inline and block elements. An inline element is one that you can use that will not force a line break before or after it. For example, an A tag is an example of an element that is inline. If I go to my resume page, this A tag is not forcing any text to go on the next line. I can demonstrate this to you by moving the word page outside of the A tag and putting it right after the closing A tag. When I save and look at my page, the word page is not forced onto the next line. This shows that A is an inline element. On the flip side of the coin, any element that forces a line break is called a block element. Some examples of block elements are P tags. If I put content on the same line after a closing P tag, it will force it onto the next line. Let's go back to Resume and show you that. First, I'm going to undo the changes and put the word page back inside of the A tag. Okay, now for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you really quick what I mean by block element. I'm going to put some text here after this closing P tag. When I save and look at my resume page, it forces text onto a new line. That is what we mean when we say block elements. Block elements force any text or content onto a new line, where inline elements do not. Where the element ends is important in our discussion about margin, padding, and border. Some other examples of block elements are OL, UL, and LI. See how each LI is on its own line, even though HTML ignores whitespace? Let's go back to our resume page. I'm going to add a span tag around the word demonstration. I can use the drag and drop method to get the correct word inside of my span tag. Okay, now I'm going to bold a demonstration using my custom class I made a few videos ago. Save and check. Okay, great, everything is working. Now let's get you started on explaining the box model. Once again, the box model refers to a set of 3 styling attributes, border, padding, and margin, that can affect the space taken up by a single element. Let's go to our style sheet and let's create some custom styles so we don't overwrite anything. Let's name our styles .box1, .box2, and .box3. Okay, I know a few videos ago I made a rule that you should make them descriptive, but for the intents of this video, it will be useful just to call them box 1, 2, and 3. Let's start by messing with border. When we start typing border into our custom style, the context menu will pop up with a lot of options. Some of the more notable ones are border top, bottom, left, and right. This would allow you to set a border on these sides respectively. Also, each side has an option to change the color, style, and width for each side. This gives you total control on how you want to set your borders. Let's get started and just set border width. Let's set the value to be 1 pixel. We also have to set border style as well. Let's set border style to solid. The reason that we do this is because by default, border is set to none, so if we set a border width of 1 pixel, it will not show up unless we override that border style to something other than none. Remember, we have to set that custom style under our class attribute in that paragraph we created on our About Me page. Now we need to save and check our work. Because P is a block element, our border goes all the way to the edge of the page. Let's set our box1 custom class for our span as well. Save and let's go back to our page. We see 2 pieces of evidence that span is an inline element. The first is that span doesn't force a line break, so we can have the word purposes on the same line as demonstration. The second piece of evidence that we see is that border only encapsulates the word demonstration. Now, let's specify a border color. Enter down and set border color to, let's say, gray. You can also set all these values at the same time by just using the attribute border without using border top, border side, etc., etc. So just use border by itself, and then you can set all of these values at the same time. Then you want to separate all of the values by a space, with no commas or anything like that, just a space. The order of the values don't matter. Just remember to end the code with a semicolon at the very end. I'm going to set the color as red so I can show you that the last statement is overriding the previous 3 statements. I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to comment out that last statement. You can keep it, or you can comment it out if you don't want to overwrite your style. Either way, you might want to write a comment to yourself that you can combine the width, style, and color into one statement by just using the attribute border. Okay, let's go back to our About Me code and copy and paste our paragraph tag 2 more times for a total of 3. We are going to build up as we go. So for the first paragraph tag, you want only box 1 to apply to it and your span. For the second, you want box 1 and box 2, and so on. I'm going to take a second to do that. Pause the video here and make sure that you build off and apply the styles from the previous paragraph. Make sure to also apply it to the span tag embedded within each paragraph. Let's move on. Go to your style sheet. We are not going to mess with border again. We messed with border in box 1, so for box 2, we are only going to mess with padding. Padding represents the space between the border and the content. When you type in padding, the context menu will pop up with a lot of options. Once again, you can assign padding specifically to the top, right, bottom, and left, or you can apply it all at once by just using the word padding. We are going to apply padding to all sides at once by using padding and not specifying any side. I am going to set the padding to 5 pixels. This is going to add 5 pixels of space between my border and my content. Save, and let's check our About Me page. You can see that paragraph 2 and 3 have more padding between the content and the border than paragraph 1, where we did not apply box 2. Also, our span has additional padding as well because it is an inline element. Now let's move on to box 3. The last attribute we can now mess with is margin. I am going to set margin to something huge, like 50 pixels. Okay, let's review what we've learned so far. Border is self-evident. It is the edge of my content. Padding is the space between the edge of my content and the content itself. Margin is a bit trickier to understand because it is the space between 2 separate pieces of content. When I add 50 pixels of margin, it's going to set 50 pixels of space between my elements. Let's look at my page and hopefully it will make a little more sense. We can see that it added 50 pixels of space on all sides on the outside of my border. The border is 50 pixels from all other elements around it. Even my inline element is affected and it adds 50 pixels of space between my paragraph text and my span text. Even though my span is encapsulated inside of my paragraph tag, it still added 50 pixels of space around it because it is a separate element. Let me show you one more thing. I'm going to right-click over my third paragraph. Don't right-click over the word that you put inside of your span element. Just right-click over any other part of that third paragraph. I'm going to select the Inspect option. It's going to open a page that looks like this. I'm going to hit the Elements option. If you don't see an Elements option, then click on this little icon here and see if it's there. Google it if you still can't find it. Once inside of the Elements screen, you should be able to scroll down under Styles, or if you can click Computed, it will be right there where it will show you the box model. If you don't see the Computed, then you can just keep scrolling down under Styles until you see this box model. Hover your mouse over different parts and starting from the inside, this is the content. Hover over padding and you will be able to see the 5 pixels of padding you added. Hover over border and you see your border is 1 pixel, and margin is 50 pixels on all sides. This is the box model and the end of this video.